Hey guys, so this is What If Deku was Shang-Chi Part 2. Now guys, Part 1 I think it was a couple months ago, or a month, probably a couple months, but I think I made it like a day or two, maybe the day before the Shang-Chi movie or before I saw Shang-Chi. But guys, basically, I'm doing Part 2 because, well, just want to do Part 2, and also just wanted to, well, narrate Deku actually, being able to go demon mode. Because most of my what ifs, I make Deku a total savage. And I like Deku like a savage. Now, guys, after this video, I will be uploading a video that I didn't put on my commentary when I saw videos coming soon. This was on the list. I am making part 2 of What If Deku was Batman Vigilante version. Because the very first what if I'm doing that involves strictly just Vigilante and No My Hero Academia. He will come across and he will eventually come across basically he will eventually come across One For All and be there for the One For All arc as a background character to save civilians. He will be there for the overall arc, and Deku will be there for most of all the arcs of My Hero Academia in the background. But strictly UA business, Deku probably won't be there. Now, basically, let's get into it, guys. Now, basically, we start our story off with pretty much Deku. Well, last time I left off, Death Dealer attacked Deku from orders from his father. Deku was walking off, basically him having a shuriken stab or a shuriken wound in his stomach after Death Dealer attacked him. He would have ran into the forest, deep into the forest near UA, and basically would have been in there in the trees. Death Dealer would have been following him, going in the trees, but would be going a different direction since Deku would be smart enough to try to stop the bleeding as much as possible and not let a single drop of blood fall or hit the grass so it would not leave a trail. When Deku got to a safe place near a tree, basically he would have started to look at his wound, lifting up his shirt. He would have seen that it was a huge gash towards his shirt, and basically when he pulled it out, since the shuriken had more of a hook, basically he made a little bit more damage than he was actually doing good. As he was trying to cover it up, he would have ripped his shirt and would have used it as a type of tourniquet, or not tourniquet, but a type of bandage. He would have tied it around tightly, or would have started to jog back to his house or where he was living. Basically, he would have walked into his house, and basically, or his penthouse. I think give him a penthouse or a house. Basically, pretty much, Deku would have been looking at his wounds and would have grabbed a first aid kit, basically trying to patch up as best as he could. He did that as much as he could, plus since he does have full body control, he was able to use most of that to limit himself from feeling the pain, and also being able to use as much body control as he possibly can to try to stop the bleeding and just try to stop the pain at any cost. When he was doing this, he would successfully stitch it back up. It would be some internal bleeding, but Deku would be able to overcome that. Just because, plot, yeah, like anime, if you're a main character, you don't really die or get injured like you're a main character. You got plot armor. Like, plot armor is the most powerful thing in the world. But basically, pretty much Deku would have been able to, pretty much, well, take care of the wound best he could, and basically would have stitched it up. Basically, the next day at school, a couple days later, that's when the combat training would come across. Deku would still be at 90%, but still, was kind of injured from the shuriken stab and also the beating he got from Death Dealer. Now, basically, we would see that Deku would have gone back to school, Death Dealer watching from afar, him not wanting to make too much, commotion since it was broad daylight and also he was around his peers. So he had to leave and wait for another time. Him reporting back to, the dragon, or the Mandarin, aka Deku's father. He would have talked to the Mandarin, and the Mandarin would have looked at Death Dealer being completely disappointed. Would have scolded Death Dealer and would have told him tomorrow night to make sure that my son is brought here. And basically just going on about everything. He wasn't really worried about the shuriken, because well, Deku's gone through a lot more, injuries gruesome than just getting stabbed in the shuriken by the and stabbed in the shuriken in the gut. Like Deku's father trained him well. Like Deku's been stabbed a lot worse and been hit, punched, thrown off little edges of mountains for just pain tolerance, for his body control and stuff like that. So yeah, so Deku would have walked into UA, and the class day would have gone similar. Deku would have gotten pretty good grades and blah blah, and just doing some school stuff. Eventually, All Might would have showed up and would have told them about, well, combat training. He would have also mentioned the hero suits or the uniforms, and would have clicked the button. The other wall in the room would have popped out suitcases or boxes of the hero's suits. Deku would have Deku would have designed his own hero suit and would have given it to the designers to make it for him. He would have grabbed the hero suit and basically would have put it on. People would see Deku's scars in the locker room, and Kirishima would have said that that's so manly. Deku just ignoring this since he just focuses on his injuries. Deku's hero costume would be similar to. Sorry, guys. Similar to this hero costume. Basically, this costume Shang-Chi had. And basically, this costume would have been exactly like this. Deku having the yellow shoes, the red and black jumpsuit with the gold wristbands and the nunchucks. Basically, the nunchucks being a part of his hero costume, being able to compact into little discs that were located right at the end of the nunchucks. That could be compacted into little discs that he could put near the sides of his gold wristbands for very, smooth and liquid, pretty much weapon storage. So he wouldn't be restricted in his jumpsuit for acrobatic and also, just martial arts stuff. And basically, pretty much after that, Deku would have gotten ready, and everybody would have seen that suit's pretty good. Some people would say it's untactical since it's not really that much durability. It's mainly just focused on flexibility. But Deku would really need that much durability in like a straight, gun out because he could just dodge bullets. And Shang-Chi's been able to dodge bullets dodge bullets like with no effort at all. Basically, that being a part of his abilities, pretty best reaction time a human being can possibly have. Basically, pretty much we see that Deku would have gotten ready and pretty much would still be teamed up by a Chaku. Now, guys, I asked you last time what should be the ship. I wasn't gonna ship Deku with anybody, but lately in my what ifs, I've been forgetting about ships because the Young Justice what ifs, the ships haven't really gone that far unless the what ifs have gone to like episode part 5, part 6 or something. So I just want to do a ship. Originally, I was going to ship Deku with Momo, Froppy, or Jiro, or mainly Momo because Momo's rich and also she is pretty good at acrobatics and martial arts in this continuity. But basically, pretty much, guys, what should be the ship? I really want you guys to answer that question, please. But let's just get back into the what if. Basically, we see that Deku would have been starting to fight, would have been starting to get ready. Basically, him doing some stretches and key moves. Basically, pretty much Ochaku would have asked him what's the plan, and Deku would have told her to follow me. They would have ran up the stairs, basically them going on the floor, and basically telling Ochaku to go that way. Deku would go this way. Deku would go down a hallway, basically coming across Bakugo, and Ochaku would have came across the hallway, going up the stairs, and basically her eventually getting to the bomb room where Ida was. She would have started to latch or tackle to Ida, trying to fight him like she did in canon. And then we switch back to Deku trying to fight pretty much trying to fight Bakugo. Deku got into a fighting stance, and Bakugo would have looked at him and would have charged right at him. Deku would have dodged most of his attacks, eventually kicking him upside the head and basically using some pressure points trying to end this fight as quickly as possible since he doesn't want to rip his stitches. He would have, pretty much Well, the key move or a very crucial, well, what was it? A very crucial pressure point, basically making Bakugo temporarily paralyzed all around. Pretty much immobilizing him for a good 30 minutes. He would have fell onto the ground, basically him not being able to move or even function, him just being able to think. And with that thinking process, he would have started to drool since none of his organs would still be working, but he couldn't move a single part of his body, not even his tongue. So yeah, he was just completely paralyzed for about 30 minutes. Deku would have sprinted up the stairs, basically him not really trying to fight Bakugo, just leaving him there. He would have ran up the stairs and we came across Ida running around the bomb, running away from Ochaku, seeing a bunch of rubble in the sky. It was floating. Deku would have jumped on the rubble, going the rubble to rubble, jumping on top of it, kind of like Quicksilver from Phoenix Force did with the leftover shards of wood that was colliding through the air when he tried to, take down the Phoenix Force. But it didn't really work that well, but it did work well this one. Basically, he would have been pretty much moving, and he would eventually catch up with Ida, grabbing Ida by the leg, and pretty much tugging his leg backwards, dislocating it, him falling onto the ground, and Deku catching the bomb before it can hit the ground. He would have catched the bomb, touching it, and basically would have won. Hero team would have won, villain team would have lose. Ochako would have been really impressed by how Deku moved so swiftly, fast, and just straight up, folded Ida. Ida's leg was popped back in place. Bakugo was just put on a rusty bed for about 30 minutes until the feeling in his body came back. And basically after that, the school day would have ended. That night, Deku would have been walking back to his house when he heard something happen in the bush or in the nearby forest near him. He would have gotten into a fighting stance when he would see that it was just a dog that walked at the forest. He would have gone by his normal day, basically him not knowing it, but pretty much Death Dealer sending a different type of, assassin after Deku. Sending a different type of assassin after Deku, somebody that was different. Deku would have looked at the assassin and basically would have been semi disgusted. I don't know, it wasn't disgusted. Deku would have not known the assassin was there because the assassin was on the top of the buildings and basically stalking Deku. Deku would have been walking down the street in his street clothes with a green hoodie, a red shirt, black jeans, and his iconic red shoes Deku wears, but just the soles of the shoes not being white but being black. Basically, Deku just walking down the street. And basically, Deku would have been walking down the street and he would have noticed something shift in the air. He would have hid or tried to run, trying to make the assassin get off his tail, but Deku would have surely figured out somebody was following him because he catch the assassin jumping to another building following him. Deku would have ran into an alleyway, getting into a trash can, and the assassin, not knowing where he was, would have let her guard down, basically her going down into, pretty much her going down into the alleyway, her walking around. Out of nowhere, Deku would have popped out of the trash can, would have kicked her upside the head as hard as he possibly could, kicking her into another nearby trash can, her falling down. She would have grabbed the trash can lid and would have threw it at full speed, Captain America style, towards Deku. Deku would have dodged it and would have seen that it went right through the alleyway wall, basically going into another person's building. Pretty much, he would have been shocked at how strong this person was, but not that shocked because he didn't really see strength because skill overpowers everything else. That's what Deku thinks. And basically, this she assassin would have been somebody, my own character. Basically, she in this universe would have been Death Dealer's daughter. Now, Death Dealer's daughter, pretty much, her quirk is basically Deathstroke doesn't have a quirk himself, but pretty much his daughter's quirk, basically the bit is simple. Pretty much her abilities are just increase like super soldier type strength. So basically she's at Captain America levels of agility, strength, durability, and stuff like that. So she's basically just has Captain America's powers. That's basically it. With the training of Sportsmaster, since a very young age. Deku was trained by a very young age as well, about the same was it amount of time, but she was trained as soon as she was able to walk. I mean, as soon as she was able to literally put one foot into another, put one foot in front of the other. Like, she was completely, and I mean completely, straight up, I'm not even joking, guys. She was she was completely trained, and she was vigorously trained by a very young age. Turned, by the time she was able to even walk, not even at a normal age, by the time she was able to walk, she was already learned how to throw a fist, a good solid fist. So yeah, it was bad. But Deku was trained a lot more proficiently and a way more skill, but she was just trained longer than Deku. So yeah, she just has more of a killer mentality since her dad is Death Dealer. So she's willing to kill Deku or kill herself in the process of killing him. So she has a mission. She will use her body as a weapon or a shield just to get close to Deku and kill him. So she and also she did kind of grow up with Deku, basically them meeting up with each other sometimes, and then and there throughout about like 14 times through their whole life. But basically, pretty much Deku would have looked at her and would have fought her a lot longer, them transferring this fight into a nearby local park where nobody was around. Pretty much silence just being interrupted by swishes, kicks, pretty much ahs and oohs and just, grunts. Pretty much them being kicked around or kicking themselves around like rag dolls by each other. Deku took out his gold nunchucks he had nearby, or he had on himself since he always was prepared. He would have started to fight against this, assassin, pretty much hitting her left and right, throwing punches, kicks, and eventually hits her upside the head, breaking off her mask. And she would have been dressed up kind of like, spoilers for Hawkeye, she would have been dressed up similar to pretty much from Elena from Hawkeye, what she wore with the whole entire mask thing when she first appeared trying to kill Clint. So basically, pretty much what would happen is Deku would have looked at Elena, or I mean, would have looked at Sportsmaster's daughter, and her name would have been pretty much the assassin. Would have looked similar to pretty much would have looked exactly kind of like of a black-haired female version of Shigaraki, or basically kind of like a skinnier female version of Deku with more of a kind of a Lady Shiva type face from DC Comics. Kind of the build, pretty much kind of in between, kind of like a Mina from Class 1A type of body build, and she would have had kind of a Lady Shiva type face with long black hair and with one white highlight. And basically, they could recognize in his face, pretty much saying Elena. Pretty much, pretty much the assassin's name would have, her name would have been Elena. And basically, she would have looked at Deku. She would have looked at Deku, and basically would have said, you left me and your sister. I'm disgusted by your betrayal to your own father, to your own friends and family. Pretty much Deku would have said I had to leave. And she would have said I don't want to hear it. Basically her throwing a shuriken towards Deku. Deku dodging this, grabbing it while he dodged it, and throwing it back at Elena, throwing it in her shins. Elena would have yelled in pain, would have ripped it out, and would have ran towards Deku. Deku would have dodged her attacks, but second Deku was grabbed by the foot when he jumped out the way. Elena slammed him so hard in the ground, it made at least a 5-foot crater behind Deku. Deku having a few broken bones. Deku would have looked up, his vision being blurry, and pretty much she would have looked at Deku saying, "Pity. I actually liked you as kids. I liked you as a kid. I liked you when we were kids." And basically, she would have taken out Ace Blade, Basically, you're about to, pick Deku out. But out of nowhere, a hero would have shown up. This hero being Azawa. Azawa would have showed up and started to fight off Elena. Elena, since her mask was gone, she didn't want to get her identity shown. Because she did leave. She did have kind of a life in Japan. Had a life in Japan. She had like a semi-life in Japan. But she didn't really live in Japan. But basically, she would have ran off, grabbing her mask, and would have sprinted off, basically her losing Azawa. Azawa would have escorted Deku to the hospital, and Deku would have been treated. And for this treatment, since Deku would be in the hospital, he wouldn't be there for the USJ. So in part 3, we'll be talking about the sports festival. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys subscribe. I know this video was a little bit short, but just not that much to go off of. But guys, in part 3, this will be about the the sports festival, and it'll be about the sports festival, and after that, part 4 will be about the internships and a bunch of other stuff. And basically, yeah. So guys, I hope you guys enjoy the video, and see you guys later. As always, guys, have a blessed day. And also tonight I will be uploading What If Deku Was Batman Part 2. See you guys later. Bye. As always, guys, have a blessed day.